I want you guys out there to get your popcorn, your beer, your weed, whatever you need to relax and chill. Because I'm finna give you guys an interesting story about the Charlos getting dropped in sparring. Well, one of the Charlos getting dropped in sparring by Errol Spence. This is a must-hear story right here. A lot of people is spectating. They don't know whether to really believe the story or not. But I'm letting you guys know right now the truth on what happened in the sparring. Now, you will hear my smoke alarm in the background. Why? Because this is an older clip. Times is better now, but times is hard at these times. It is what it is. So, like I said, get your popcorn, because it's going to be a good 20 minutes of entertainment, y'all. All right? Enjoy.
Across the ring. The counter punch.
Alright, y'all. Welcome to another episode of my sparring stories. Now, this sparring story right here between Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo, the reason this sparring story right here is so interesting is because these guys have sparred with each other countless of times. But this was the time when they first basically, popped each other's cherry, pause, when it comes down to getting to know each other, how each other fight, actually practicing with each other. They were both new to each other when it came down to sparring. And these two together makes a perfect spar because they're both elite level talent and they both are world champions. They're both unified so far. So it lets you know the progress that they had and helping each other, assisting each other with practice, But what a lot of people don't understand about Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence is when they first started sparring with each other, they didn't have a lot of respect for each other like they did now. Yeah, they both respected each other, but it wasn't to the point where it's like, motherfucker, we could go in this fight or spar or whatever, and we can really spar, we can duke it out. Like I told you guys, Errol Spence be in these sparring sessions really fighting, especially when he don't give a fuck about you, really. That's why I feel sorry for dudes like, Troy King, for example, or any of these guys that just want to spar with Errol Spence, that really don't like Errol Spence but just want to spar with Errol Spence. You better prepare for a real fight and not just practice, really. Because Errol Spence, as I said before, Errol Spence is going into these sparring sessions to hurt people. That's why a lot of people want to spar with Errol Spence, because they know that he's not just going in these sparring sessions like it's just a regular spar, like it's just practice. He's not treating it like practice, y'all. Alright? And Jermell Charlo, this is exactly what he want, and Derrick James want. All these guys want this. Hungry, satisfying sparring sessions. That's why, we can say whatever the fuck we want to say about Errol Spence. He literally has sparred with goods, elites, and greats. Okay? I'm just going to leave it at that. I know sparring is sparring, but it is a statement. Alright? So, some of you guys out there may say, Waits, get to the point. Like I tell you guys in all of my sparring stories. Go check it out. Good storytellers are detail oriented. Good storytellers tell you everything from the beginning to the end. So like I was saying, Errol Spence needed some good sparring for Brook. He knows he is going out to England to get a world title. And Errol Spence was trying to spar somebody that was skill wise and physicality wise. Shit, you can argue, well, a lot of people will say it's a fact. Mentality wise, it's a lot stronger than Kell Brook, which was smart on Kell Brook's behalf. Errol Spence's behalf, to not come in this sparring session with a fighter that's on the same level as Kell. Why not get somebody that can do everything Kell can do, if not better? Notice I said if not, because Kell is a good talent, you know. But you knew that Errol Spence was serious about stopping Kell the way he was sparring with Jermell Charlo. First of all, him even bringing Jermell Charlo in for a sparring session, multiple sparring sessions by the way, is letting you know he's not finna play with Kell Brook. That alone. Okay? But the fact that, especially in the initial sparring sessions, he was really trying to put a hurting on Jermell Charlo. Okay? And like I said before, this was at a time when he really didn't fuck with Jermell Charlo like that. Yes, the respect was there, but as you guys know, Errol Spence was trying to stop Floyd Mayweather in sparring. So what do you think is going to be any difference if he's trying to basically stop one of his idols in sparring? You heard about what he did to Adrian Broner in sparring. So you know Jermell Charlo is finna get that work. If not, he's going to get that work. And this sparring session right here is funny because this is just one of the sparring sessions, which was a 4 to 5 rounder that they spar in the initial sparring sessions. What's funny about this is Jermell Charlo held his own. Shit, he probably won the sparring. You will know by the end of this video. Alright? Now, before I get into the actual sparring, let me let you guys know this. It was some shit talking when these guys first sparred. Like I said, you guys see the brotherhood and the teammates. You can see a teammate factor when it comes down to Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence now. But at first, it wasn't like that. These guys had to earn each other's respect. The same thing with everybody that Errol Spence spars. It's really fucked up. Especially for what I'm hearing, you guys. Because Errol Spence has been in a bunch of epic sparrings. If you guys notice, most of my sparring stories is involving Errol Spence. And from what I'm hearing, you guys, yes, sparring is sparring, but Errol Spence is a monster in the sparring sessions, you guys. And when I say monster, it's not like I'm saying invisible or no shit like that, because anybody can get touched. What I mean is, he takes sparring session very seriously, which is a great thing because a lot of this shows in the fucking ring. Okay? And honestly, if Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo, or even Jermell Charlo fought, I do see those as pretty even fights, if not Errol Spence winning. Errol Spence is a huge welterweight. That's why it is some truth to people saying, you know, Errol Spence is a weight bully. I wouldn't call Errol Spence a weight bully, but if you can make the weight, you can make the weight. But he is a lot bigger than these guys at welterweight. That's why you could think of an Errol Spence versus Canelo, Errol Spence Charlo, Errol Spence Hurd. All those make sense, right? What about a Keith Thurman versus Canelo? Keith Thurman versus Charlo? What about Danny Garcia versus a Charlo. All those don't make sense, right? But it does for Errol Spence. You see what I'm saying? So this is why he can spar guys like Charlo. You know, I'm hearing Errol Spence even sparring heavyweights. I'm going to save those for all my other sparring stories. Okay? So, as far as the sparring session is concerned, and the shit talking leading up to the sparring session, Jermell Charlo is saying things. Of course, I can't quote Jermell Charlo, but he's saying things along the lines of, "You're not going to be able to touch me." Okay? He's talking about his counter-punching ability, his foot speed, the jab. All this shit is going to offset Errol Spence. You remember, you guys have to understand that Jermell Charlo, especially before, well, he still is, but especially before the Tony Harrison fight, he was a huge trash talker. And Errol Spence, you know, he talks shit, but not really on a Jermell Charlo type of level. So he's just let Charlo know that he's going to put a hurting on him, that he's going to pressure him and pressure bust pipes. So as you guys can see, the game plan for Errol Spence was to show Jermell Charlo that he does have grit and that he's going to apply smart pressure on Jermell Charlo. Nobody has never seen nobody apply this pressure on Jermell Charlo, especially at this stage, which was several years ago. Okay, so that was basically Errol Spence's game plan on Jermell Charlo, was to see can this man be able to solve this pressure and grit and determination that Errol Spence is going to bring to this sparring session. Okay? So Errol Spence is just basically letting them know that pressure busts pipes. So with that being said, for the first, like I told you guys, Errol Spence, especially around this time, he is a fighter that it takes a while to get the gas running. You know, he's like a Bernard Hopkins, kind of like a perfect example, a Marvin Hagler. That's why when it comes down to Errol Spence, you really want to start off fast with him. Okay? Because once Errol Spence get that train rolling, it's really hard to stop. You know, he's a warm-up fighter, even in sparring. I even heard Mayweather was, you know, piecing him up. Adrian Broner was piecing him up for the first couple of rounds until Errol Spence started to come on strong. And you see what happened with Adrian Broner, and you heard what happened to Mayweather. The same similarities happened to Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo started off really running. It is what it is. From what I'm hearing, Jermell Charlo started off running, trying to pot shot Errol Spence, and it was working. Pot shotting Errol Spence, beautiful jab, you know, throwing the straight right. He was really landing the straight right at will. Errol Spence trying to go to the body, and Jermell Charlo kept going up top and clocking Errol Spence. Alright? So, yes, the first couple of rounds, Jermell Charlo looked good. But it was mainly fell-out rounds, you could tell. But if you had to edge anybody in the fell-out rounds, it would be Jermell Charlo. You guys have to understand, as I told you guys before, it was only 4 to 5 rounds in the first sparring. So Errol Spence really needs to start up. Alright? And that's another thing that Derek James was letting Errol Spence know. That when it comes down to Jermell Charlo, you really got to start early. Because it's not like you guys are finna go 15 rounds or 20 rounds on the first sparring session. You know? So, with that being said, Errol Spence started to come on in the third round. Started to pressure Jermell Charlo. And really starting putting those paws on Jermell Charlo. You know? Caught Jermell Charlo with a couple good body shots that stopped Jermell Charlo in his tracks. It even let Jermell Charlo know that Errol Spence can possibly hurt him, because Errol Spence can crack. This let Jermell Charlo know that Errol Spence could crack and that he can't fight really with Errol Spence. And this is what everybody in the gym was saying, you guys, that when it came down to a phone booth fight, because it was times where Jermell Charlo tried to stand in one spot or stand in the pocket and hold his ground, but the person that would eventually start to go back was Jermell Charlo. And this is crazy that you got this supposedly 140 fighter fighting this 154 fighter, and Jermell Charlo is the one going back. That's crazy, ain't it? So with that being said, Jermell Charlo clearly lost that round, mainly due to inactivity, and when he did try to stand his ground, Errol Spence got the best of him. So once again, as I told you guys before in other sparring stories, Errol Spence showed the ability to adjust to Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo clearly lost the third. He would do good in spurts, but he lost the third. And then in the fourth round, where is all the drama comes along, because Errol Spence is still putting it on Jermell Charlo, and Jermell Charlo, and Jermell Charlo goes down. Okay, now Jermell Charlo, like I told you guys, he was on his bicycle. So Jermell Charlo tried to say that he slipped. He got up right away. He wanted to continue. Wasn't really hurt. I wouldn't lie on Jermell Charlo. The man wasn't hurt. But for what I'm hearing, the man's ass hit the canvas. Okay? It wasn't a slip. He caused a slip. But everybody, since it was a sparring session, of course, if it was a real fight, we all know the referee would have called that a knockdown. And it would have definitely been a 2-point round for Errol Spence. But since Jermell Charlo was passionate about how Errol Spence didn't knock him down, he slipped. And keep in mind, Derrick James is Jermell Charlo's coach as well at this time. So he said, you know what, we're going to just go ahead and call it a non-knockdown, and it was a slip. So they basically gave Jermell Charlo the benefit of the doubt in that situation. But Errol Spence and a lot of other people thought that Jermell Charlo was definitely down 3-1, because we all know a knockdown is a 2-point round. So Derrick James requested for the sparring session to be postponed, and I'll get into that in another episode of my sparring stories. Okay? But luckily, when it comes down to Jermell Charlo, they wasn't recording the sparring session, and they gave him the benefit of the doubt. Errol Spence really wasn't pressing the issue like that when it comes down to the sparring. Plus, I'm hearing how quickly Jermell Charlo got up. It was like a Mayweather-Zab Judah situation, except Jermell Charlo's ass actually touched the fucking canvas. Alright? And that's exactly what happened when they sparred, okay? And I remember watching an interview with Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence. And Errol Spence basically clearing up the rumors circulating that he dropped Jermell Charlo, and he tried to say that never happened. Well, let me let you know this. Number one, that lets you know how much respect that Errol Spence gained for Jermell Charlo, because that's not how we felt when it first happened. Number two, that lets you know that Errol Spence definitely knows how to keep a secret, because let's just say Errol Spence didn't feel like he dropped Jermell Charlo, which he did. Even if that's true, Errol Spence could at least said, well, it was ruled a slip. It wasn't a knockdown. He claimed he slipped, or something around those lines, instead of just fully denying it. Because everybody, including Errol Spence, everybody in the gym, except Jermell Charlo, thought, wow, this is the first guy that we ever seen drop Jermell Charlo. I guess that's another reason they was gonna let it pass, because we never seen Jermell get dropped before. But he did get dropped by Errol Spence. That's episode 11. I'm out.